You can put it on the board. Yeah. Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignons, and of course the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. They're incredible. Hell, even those Angus and Prime Wagyu burgers, best I've ever had, likely be the best you've ever had as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com on your mobile device or on your computer. Hell, give them a call. Find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! All right, a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, as well as Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Wild Cable Television, and Time Warner Cable Television affiliates from coast to coast as well, scattered markets, and also Hotel TV in over 210 Nielsen-rated markets. That's all the Nielsen markets there are in the country. So chances are, if you're staying in a very nice hotel, you're probably going to either watch this or you've seen this in the past. So make sure you also like, subscribe, and follow on Instagram, Facebook, and Camera One here, AMP TV, AAMP.TV. That's also our television feed camera as well. It's the one I keep pointing to that everybody keeps seeing. That's the one in case you're watching on television. All right, so thanks for joining us. And listen, this has been a really good last couple of days in sports. Yeah, we could timestamp it. We don't like to timestamp it, but we're going to do it this time. This weekend was probably, arguably, one of the wildest weekends for this whole college football playoff thing. And this college football playoff, this 4-team disaster of a tournament that they have in the college football playoff program, saw some changes. Now, of course, the new polls are going to come out. By the time you've heard this on the radio or TV, depending on the market you're in, those results would have changed, and they all relate to this right here, right now. So, of course, over the weekend, it was Georgia. It was rivalry weekend. Georgia with an easy win against Georgia Tech. Nobody suspected it was going to be a difficult one. But there was another game that was played in Columbus, Ohio. And that game was the titanic matchup of Ohio State was hosting Michigan. Everybody looks forward to that in the college football world every year. Kind of like in basketball, they look forward to Duke, Carolina, that kind of thing. Well, it turns out that Michigan, they were getting about 7.5 points from the home team and host Buckeyes. However, it also turns out that, yes, Ohio State was thoroughly embarrassed and thumped by Michigan 45-23. What a complete disaster for Ohio State. This couldn't have gone any worse. And I'll get to that in a minute here when we talk about these rankings and whatnot, but unbelievable turn of events in Columbus, Ohio. Just when you thought Ohio State, I even thought Ohio State was going to win by double digits. What do I know, right? I'm just another guy talking about sports. But anyway, it turns out that Ohio State was absolutely demolished at home. Got to tell you, couldn't happen to a better bunch of guys, too. In my opinion. The lesser of two evils for me. I'm a Big Ten guy as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. But it was nice to see Ohio State get thoroughly embarrassed at home. And, of course, much to do about a lot. Because sometimes they say, well, you know, it's much to do about nothing. Not this time. No. This had a lot to do with everything. Because remember, going into these playoffs, you had Georgia at number 1, a solid number 1. Ohio State, a solid number 2. Michigan, a solid number 3. And TCU, another undefeated team, at number 4. Now, TCU took care of business. They rolled over Iowa State, which I didn't think they would. They dropped 55 on them, which is kind of alarming. And TCU didn't have to come back and win the game for a change, because they normally have to do that, seemingly. Those are the original 2022 version of the Cardiac Kids. However, let's take a look below the top 4. LSU, just when you think they could be the potential 2-loss team to make it into the college football playoff, not so fast. They get embarrassed by an abysmal Texas A&M football team. And boy, those guys are bad. Jimbo Fisher somehow pulled out a pretty good win, a 2-touchdown win over LSU, and basically eliminates LSU from the potential of the college football playoff. Now, also below LSU was probably the best 1-loss team in the country, and that was the University of Southern California. Fight on, USC. USC beats up on Notre Dame. And I have to say that these guys look good. They're peaking at the right time. They beat a very good UCLA team a week previous. They beat a peaking Notre Dame team that was playing really good ball up until that particular game. And then they are now going into the Pac-12 title game against the team that beat them. Remember, they had 1 loss. And it was Utah that won at home 45-42. Now, this game between these two teams are being played at a neutral field. So you could see a very different game right here in Las Vegas. Yes, this week, Las Vegas, you'll see the Pac-12 championship game. And it's not really an advantage for either team, although this is Las Vegas, California. In case you don't know, there are so many California license plates here in Las Vegas. I got to tell you, it's a little frustrating. Anyway, the point is, it's basically a home game for USC. They're basically a 3.5-hour drive. We'll call it 4-hour drive. Whereas Salt Lake City, or I should say Provo, Utah, that whole area up in Utah, they're in Logan, Utah, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, it's about a 6-hour drive, 6, maybe 7-hour drive, probably closer to 7 or 8 hours. Doesn't matter. All I know is this is a home game for USC. USC likely will win this game, and they'll win it going away. And the bigger problem is going to be what happens in this college football playoff. Why? Well, let's continue on. By the way, Alabama wins the Iron Bowl over Auburn. Could Alabama sneak in there if all hell breaks loose? We'll get to that in a moment. And we'll get to Auburn in a moment on the coaching side. So back to this college football playoff thing. So the new rankings will come out. Georgia will be number 1. Michigan will be number 2. TCU will be number 3. The bigger question is it going to be USC at number 4? I believe it's going to. I think USC will slip into that number 4 slot. Now, can they hold the number 4 slot is the big question. So the problem is, actually strike that. I would almost believe that USC would be number 4 and Ohio State would drop to number 5. See, the big deal here is that Ohio State doesn't have another game to play during the season because they're done now because they blew it. Now, Michigan faces off against Purdue. Yes! Against Purdue. A lot of applause, of course. In the Big Ten Championship. And so Ohio State has to sit and wait. And Ohio State has to root for Purdue to beat Michigan. Yes. And USC also has to likely root for Michigan to lose. So Ohio State is going to be big Purdue fans. And honestly, this is going to be a gigantic disaster. And looking at the matchup, Michigan likely will look past Purdue. And that game, by the way, will be a home game for Purdue as they're playing the game about 30 minutes or so, maybe 40 minutes away from the Purdue campus in Indianapolis. So look for the Boilermaker fans to really show up in this one. Look for the giant drum. The world's largest drum is going to be at the game as well. It is going to be a very, very impactful game on the college football playoff because a lot is riding on this. Think about this. The SEC championship is going to feature Georgia and LSU. LSU had beaten Alabama. That's why Alabama's not in the picture, right? Now it's also going to feature a Michigan team that has a lot riding on it. Ohio State standing around waiting to see what happens. USC needs Purdue to win this game, and they need them to win this game convincingly. Then USC could catapult, and Ohio State would move up as well. There's so much going on here. And so 2 games are going to impact this college football playoff dramatically, and that's going to be the Big Ten championship and, of course, the Pac-12 championship. Meanwhile, Ohio State sits around. Those players, they twiddle their thumbs, say, are we in? Are we not in? And let's face it, Michigan, that's 2 years in a row, they beat Ohio State. Nice round of applause for Michigan. And we'll see if they can keep that trend going for quite some time. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to finish up on that segment. Then we're going to shift into the coaching scenario over in Auburn, Alabama. Why? Because we're on WAUD over in Auburn. Yes, that's home of the 2021 World Champion Atlanta Braves. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Don't hold anywhere.
Attention business.
590 VOCM St. John, 850 CHVO Carbonear, 710 CKVO Clarendale, 560 CHCM Marystown, 650 CKGA Gander, 620 CKCM Grand Falls, and 1240 CKIM Bay Vert.
FM 96, Coit, KOIT.
NPR, National Public Radio.
Stereo 92, KDFM, Walnut Creek.
KMPX, Big Band 99 FM.
KDFC, San Francisco, and KIBE, Palo Alto.
This is KRE in Berkeley.
KKHI AM and FM, San Francisco.
Camel 106.
KSFA.
KDFC San Francisco and KIBE Palo Alto.
99.7 KYUU.
This is Cable Music, KABL, Stereo 98.
KIOI San Francisco.
KSAN.
WSHH, FM 100.
Stereo 99. WKBN FM, Youngstown.
Quad 106. WWKS, Beaver Falls.
WEEP.
The good music sounds of WLOA, WLOA FM, Braddock, Pennsylvania.
Y103, WYFM, Sharon, Youngstown.
KDKA FM, Pittsburgh.
WRKY, Rocky 103.
WTV Pittsburgh.
WNUF.
WHOT. WSOM.
WAMO.
WYDD Pittsburgh.
XW Trenton, Kicks 101 and a half.
Quiet, no skulls, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at Legal Shield, providing legal protection and peace of mind. Legal Shield can help with traffic tickets, texting and driving, DUIs, court appearances, estate planning, even contracts given to people they don't understand, plus a whole lot more. For more information, contact Legal Shield at 213-245-1305. That's 213-245-1305. Again, 213-245-1305. Or check them out online at nocourt.us. That's www.nocourt.us. Or email them at info@nocourt.us. Yes! And welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from Honolulu all the way to Atlanta, including our friends over on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, New York Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome to everybody that may be listening in, tuning in with our friends over in Los Angeles area. That's on NBC News and CNBC Financial. If you are, thanks for joining us as well right here in Las Vegas. KQQY, yes, Las Vegas Public Radio. Also over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Over in Auburn, Alabama, we've got a story for you guys. That's WAUD from Columbus, Georgia, all the way over to Montgomery, Alabama. You can hear that signal long and strong. So keep it locked over there, as well as our friends picking up our content over in Lubbock, Texas. Texas Tech University, 88.1 FM KTXT. That's Raider Radio, Red Raider Radio, by the way, not LA Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders or Oakland Raiders or whatever Raiders. No, it's Texas Tech Red Raider Radio. Right, so thanks for picking up our content there. Plus all of our other affiliates. You've heard a bunch of announcements in the break as well. Thanks for everybody participating. And also welcome into everybody on Instagram, Facebook, and AMP TV, AAMP.TV, right here on this camera, the one I'm pointing to. That's also for Hotel Television and Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW Cable affiliates. All right, so the college football playoff, the water's a little bit muddy and murky, and we're going to see what happens in the coming weekend. Never mind the rankings that just come out, because they really don't mean anything until the final ranking comes out. So that's really what this is about. The Week 14 is the one that matters. Week 13 is coming out in a day or so. But what's going to end up happening is you'll see some of these teams fall, and I'm kind of interested to find out where Ohio State goes to. Something tells me Ohio State's going to be fourth. Ohio State is going to be fourth only until the Pac-12 championship game. This is how I'm seeing this thing unravel here. So, if the Pac-12 championship is played and USC wins convincingly over Utah in that rematch where the only loss that USC has, it was a 3-point loss to the Utah Utes. To what? To Utes. Right. So anyway, the Utes will have to beat this club to keep USC out. And then if that's the case, then Utah would go to the Rose Bowl. Yep. So, the consolation prize in this game, I don't know what bowl, but the prize could be a berth to the national championship, CFP for SC, or a Rose Bowl. Now, if Utah loses and USC wins, what'll likely happen is USC will take the fourth and final spot in the college football playoff, all things constant. Now, that means that TCU has to win in the Big 12 championship game. You never know what's going to happen with those guys. You never know who's going to show up. Now, even if LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, Georgia's still in the top four. It doesn't matter. Those teams are just going to switch around and move around and whatnot. And Georgia would fall to, I don't know, maybe 3. And let's say TCU 1. They would go to number 2. And then, of course, Michigan would be number 1 if they ended up winning the Big Ten championship, which you never know about that one. Because the coach, Jeff Brom, for Purdue, has played 3 games against top 5 ranked teams. And he's won all 3 of those games. So you never know. And this is yet another one for Jeff Brom and the Purdue Boilermakers. And they could be the spoiler makers for Michigan. And technically, if Purdue ends up winning, and they win big by chance, you never know, that could bring Michigan out of the picture and Ohio State in the picture. And of course, that would also drag USC in also, no matter what. So you never know what's going to happen here. A lot can happen in the next handful of days here. So let's talk a little bit about Auburn football for a moment, because, you know, the Iron Bowl was just played. Alabama with a usual seemingly convincing win over Auburn, and War Eagle has landed, and I don't know if they're going to be flying anymore this year. They're not going to be playing any bowl games, but Auburn has some work to do. They got a lot of work to do. And I'm not really sure which direction they're going to go. A lot of people are speculating on the coaching side. Is it going to be Hugh Freeze? Is it going to be this one? Is it going to be that one? Is Cadillac going to stay in there? Cadillac's not staying in there. No, this guy was just a placeholder for the next guy. So we have some discussion, and we have a potential solution or some paths for the football team to consider when it comes to, better yet, the athletic department or the athletic director for a potential head coach. But nonetheless, let's get to this. And this is from the Nashville Tennessean. And they say, can the SEC stop Auburn from hiring Hugh Freeze as the football coach? And here's what the league bylaws have to say about that. So the Tennessean says Auburn football is looking for a new head coach after firing Brian Harsin, and everybody, of course, knew that was coming. And one candidate whose name has come up in discussions is the former Ole Miss coach Hugh Freeze. So, with a background that includes a major NCAA sanctions, not a, but several, under his watch at Ole Miss, would the SEC welcome him back? And if not, could the league do anything about it? I don't really think so. So Hugh's over at Liberty when he left Ole Miss under these NCAA investigation. Initially, an internal investigation uncovered a pattern of calls from his university phones to numbers found in ads for escort services. Come on, Hugh. Really? Anyway, Ole Miss was accused of 15 Level 1 violations, and the NCAA Infractions Committee said the school lacked institutional control and fostered, quote, an unconstrained culture of booster involvement in football recruiting, close quote. NCAA penalties resulted in Ole Miss vacating 33 wins over 6 seasons. Is that something that Auburn really wants? That kind of a cloud over the program, or potential cloud? So some of the infractions, of course, which included alleged academic, booster, and recruiting rules violations. Oops. Well, the booster thing now is really that NIL thing. So who knows about that? But the academic part and recruiting part, I'm very concerned about. And those date back to the previous head coach, Houston Nutt. But most occurred under Freeze. So Hugh was not innocent. Apparently, allegedly, I don't know. Ole Miss ended up with a 2-year bowl ban on top of it, as well as a 3-year probation, scholarship reduction, and recruiting restrictions. Not good. NCAA issued a 2-conference game suspension of Freeze if he had been hired as a head coach for the following season. So this guy was in big trouble. So Freeze spent 5 years at Ole Miss, actually did pretty well, going 39-25 during his time before, of course, the vacated wins, and reached a bowl game in each of his first 4 seasons, and he also beat Alabama twice. And of course, that is of utmost importance to Auburn because that's their chief rival. Right? We have this Iron Bowl that was just played. That's why I mentioned it. And of course, so he beat Alabama twice, raising his profile, of course, and of the program. And so that really helped in recruiting. But his coaches, Ole Miss, he actually coached them to 9-win regular seasons in back-to-back years for the first time in 60 years. And took the Rebels to 4 consecutive bowl games for the first time in 51 years, dating back as current. Nonetheless, he was hired at Liberty prior to the 2019 season and has gone 33-12, including a 10-win season. A couple of years ago, a 7-1 record this season as well, landing the Flames at number 23 in the latest USA Today poll. That's the coaches' poll. So the coaches are giving him some love. They're saying, you know what? This guy is pretty damn good. And he's won bowl games after each of his previous 3 seasons. So nobody's really questioning Hugh Freeze's ability, but they're questioning his character, as I see it. So given his background, and so is the Tennessean, by the way, given his background and unceremonious exit from Ole Miss. However, the SEC might have reservations about allowing him back into the coaching ranks in the SEC. So Alabama coach Nick Saban was reportedly interested in hiring Freeze a handful of years ago, but indicated the league office convinced him to back off when he asked about it. So what about Auburn? So if Auburn decides to pursue Hugh Freeze, could the SEC do anything about it? Short answer, nah, they can't do a damn thing. But there would be a discussion, but they can't do a damn thing. End of day. SEC bylaws 19.8.1.2 says it requires member schools to, quote, exercise best efforts to hiring individuals committed to rules compliance, close quote. It does not explicitly forbid league schools from hiring coaches with NCAA compliance baggage. I'm going to pick up on that when we come back here on the Circus, talk Auburn football, stick with the NCAA, and see if we can find a coach for War Eagle and the Auburn Tigers. Don't go anywhere, lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935, or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Zwoele zomerhits.
Klopvaste actua.
De leukste cadeaus. Donna.
The sound of summer.
WAQI, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Houston. 590.
You're listening. The only one radio station in the heart of Pasig City. This is 104.1 Best Radio FM. Stay tuned.
You're tuned into Boston's best for dance and R&B. Keep it locked. Keep it locked to Mix 96.
WKLO Louisville.
EXW Trenton. Kicks 101.5. The music you love to hear.
C100.
Hey everybody, this is Barry Katz from the Industry Standard Podcast, and you're listening to the Sports Circus with Sal Tuzzolino.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio. That's AAMP.TV. Stands for All Ages Media Programming Television, in case you're keeping score. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategy, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing companies with physical locations or on the internet. You decide. You bring the idea. The American Business Trust Company can help. Give them a call right now for more information at 657-600-1876. That's 657-600-1876. Again, 657-600-1876. Or check them out online at abtrustco.com. That's www.abtrustco.com. All right, welcome back to everybody on radio, television, streaming, on Instagram, Facebook, AMP TV, AAMP.TV. Of course, all of our TV affiliates right here as well, whether it's cable television or in hotels. Folks, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. All right, so we left off talking Auburn football, the possibility of Hugh Freeze being a candidate to take over. And Hugh has a real spotted track record at Ole Miss, a whole bunch of NCAA violations, 15 level 1. As a matter of fact, I think that's what it read. If I'm not mistaken, it was 15 level 1 violations, right? And so the reality is, can't the SEC stop Auburn from hiring him? The answer really is no. But the bylaws from the Southeastern Conference state 19.8.1.2 requires member schools to exercise best efforts to hire individuals committed to rules compliance. It does not explicitly forbid league schools from hiring coaches with NCAA compliance baggage. And the bylaws state also, quote, while each member institution makes its own hiring decision, member institutions shall, at a minimum, request specific information from each candidate concerning his or her rules compliance, their record, and communicate with NCAA enforcement and the conference office regarding the same prior to offering employment to any candidate, close quote. But there's more. It also states, quote, in addition, where a member institution considers hiring an individual who's engaged in unethical conduct as defined under NCAA bylaws or who has participated in activity that results or may result in a level 1, level 2, or major infraction, the president or chancellor of that member institution is expected to consult directly with the commissioner prior to offering employment to that individual, close quote. So, of course, that means that Auburn president Christopher B. Roberts would have to have a conversation with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey before hiring Freeze. What is that conversation going to look like? Really, what's it going to look like? What's it going to sound like? Give me a break. It's just going to be a lot of lip service as I see it, but whatever. I'm just giving an opinion, just like everybody else. But now, Freeze, if he was hired, would not be the first coach that Auburn has hired with previous NCAA compliance issues. You may remember Bruce Pearl. That guy ran amok of the NCAA rules at Tennessee and was fired after admitting that he lied to investigators. And Pearl coached Tennessee for 6 years, from 2005 to 2011, and was hired by Auburn in 2014. Of course, penalties from the Tennessee infraction case included a 3-year show cause order on Pearl. So Auburn hired Pearl in the final months of his show cause order, and he was not allowed to contact recruits until the order expired. Enter Gus Malzahn. Nonetheless, is Auburn desperate enough to take that baggage on? Or should they find someone else? I gotta tell you, folks, there are some better choices out there. So everybody listening over in Auburn right now, listen close, because there are some guys out there, never mind all the college football coaches that are great coaches, whatever. There are guys out there. I mean, of course, I'd like to see Ed Orgeron on there. But, of course, there are some potential baggage issues of over in LSU that he didn't see certain things or whatever. I think Ed's a great guy. I would love to see Ed get a shot over there in Auburn. I don't think that's going to happen, though. But here's a little list of some absolutely worthy candidates that Auburn could bring in. Never mind Deion Sanders and all that. I think Deion should stay at Jackson for maybe another couple of years until Jackson really makes a gigantic national impact. Then he can move on because his work would have been done there. But how about this? How about this short list. How about Dan Quinn? Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And yes, Dan is a Super Bowl champion. He also lost his Super Bowl. He lost that famous game to Tom Brady and the Patriots when they were up by a huge score. Nonetheless, Dan needs no introduction. A very, very strong and solid coach. His second go-around at Dallas has reinvigorated his head coaching prospects. Of course, as he fielded requests from 6 different teams interviewing for the top job last winter. And for now, he's sticking by his creative muse, and of course, Micah Parsons, and fueling one of the most impressive rises of a young pass rusher that we've seen in the National Football League. Imagine what he could do at the college ranks. And of course, Quinn's personality is infectious. A lot of people like this guy. And of course, his positivity is relentless. And it's impossible, even as a bystander, to walk into a building where he is in a leadership role and not feel like you're somehow a part of the team. I got to tell you, Dan Quinn is one hell of a coaching prospect for Auburn. Here's another one. How about Byron Leftwich? Oh, yeah. Offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's right. He has a Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl champion as a player and as a coach. And Byron left, well, let's face it, he had a number of interviews last year, including with the Jaguars and the Bears. This guy's 42 years old. He could still identify with these kids. Byron is a hell of a candidate. And let's face it, he's from Bruce Arians' tree. And that's been, for the last 6 years when he entered the NFL coaching sphere in the first place as an intern before quickly rising to quarterback's coach. God knows Auburn needs a little bit of this. And frankly, there's a lot of other teams in the SEC and the ACC that need the same thing. Anyway, we're talking Auburn football here. But while some owners may unfairly tie their opinions of Leftwich to a performance of Tom Brady, Byron Leftwich offense was number 1 in passing yards, 3rd in total yards, 3rd in points scored with Jameis Winston under center. Imagine what he could do with young talent. Byron Leftwich is a hell of a choice. How about this one? How about Eric Bieniemy? How about this guy? And I'm going to give him a round of applause. This guy is prime for a head coaching gig in the National Football League, but they seem to keep passing him up. Not really sure. If they could somehow lure Eric Bieniemy over to Auburn, Alabama, I got to tell you, there's your guy. And just like with these other guys, we're not done. These are great choices here. Right? Super Bowl champion, Pac-12 guy, so he knows the Power 5 game. He's 53. He's an offensive coordinator, a champion. Who did he work with? Patrick Mahomes. I mean, come on. This guy knows football. Bieniemy's been around the block a long time. He's been going and going, and this guy is one hell of a candidate, just like the others. How about another one? How about 4-time Super Bowl champion Brian Flores? Of course, he's the linebackers coach with Pittsburgh. Remember, he was the head coach over in Miami. And Brian Flores, this guy took the Dolphins team that was in the midst of a teardown. He took them to 2 winning seasons in 3 years. And while the struggles of his offensive coaching staff contributed to his downfall, there's little doubt that he could lead a locker room and certainly lead the Auburn Tigers in recruiting in the SEC. There's a guy that can compete with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. That's what they've got to think about. I wouldn't even say Jimbo Fisher at this time. He's a Power 5 guy. He's an ACC guy. Look, this guy knows this game, and Brian Flores, a very good candidate. And here's another one. All right, Auburn, listen to this. How about Leslie Frazier, defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills? 2-time Super Bowl champion, and Frazier headlines a list of coaches last year who would have been excellent hires. As he just keeps getting passed over, why not bring him down to Auburn, make him an offer he can't refuse? And Leslie has interviewed with the Bears, the Giants, the Texans, and other teams in recent years, and he's been a big part of a massive turnaround in Buffalo. Everybody knows what the Bills are doing. Why not consider this guy? This is one of those guys that you want to have leading your troops. There's another guy that leads the locker room, too. How about Deuce Staley? Deuce Staley, another guy, a former running back of the SEC at South Carolina. Yes, a 9-year NFL running back. And this guy spent a large portion of his career coaching and playing under Andy Reid in Philadelphia. So this guy knows the rodeo, no question. And now the assistant coach at Alliance, and Alliance are turning it around. This guy is a very good candidate. And of course, I would consider him. And how about one final one? How about Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator for the Titans? Bowen became the Titans defensive coordinator a year ago. And of course, a critical seat next to Mike Vrabel. And that year, coordinated a defense that was really 6th in points allowed and 2nd in rushing yards. That's exactly what an Auburn team needs against these high-powered offenses in the SEC. Look, He's an ACC guy, another Power 5 guy. And this guy certainly would be good in recruiting. And look what he's built in Tennessee. Man, this guy is one hell of a coach, and he puts defense on the field that stops chaos from happening. So, Auburn, you've got choices. Don't just look in these collegiate ranks. Don't look for a guy with a ton of baggage. How about these people with incredible, impeccable backgrounds? And you get them for the same damn prices you'd probably pay for a guy like Hugh Freeze, in my opinion. So why not bring in one of these guys that knows the rodeo? They know how to win on the highest level of the game. That should be, in my opinion, your priority, Auburn. Look at winners, not at people with chaos in their backgrounds. All right, back here in a few minutes on the Circus. We're going to talk a little NFL when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. The best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com.
Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are found on our podcast page on pick your favorite platform, whether it's Apple, Google, Amazon, Audible, Stitcher. We're on all of those. iHeartRadio, Spotify, you can't get away from us. So make sure you check out any of those shows. And actually, if you go to those pages, each show will show which guest was on. So you can actually match up the shows on the page, the homepage for the sportscircus.com, and then you can match them up on those platforms. You can find whichever show you want to listen to. There's lots and lots of great shows. Got to tell you, there's, over 1,500 shows that we've done, actually well over that. Nonetheless, plenty of shows. And also make sure you check out our partners page. And of course, the College of Southern Nevada Athletics is one of those. They've been with us since the very beginning. CSNCoyotes.com right here in Las Vegas for great entertainment, for great events and sporting events. I mean, their baseball team is phenomenal. Folks, go to those baseball games, which obviously are coming right around the corner. And there are scores and scores of Major League Baseball scouts at these games. Great talent has come from there. Hell, Bryce Harper went to school there. And of course, he won the MVP in the Major League Baseball as well. But at the end of the day, make sure you go to the sportscircus.com and check out our partners. And also another one of those is Kelly Strong. Check them out for great active wear, hats, hoodies, shoes, surfboards, skateboards, pants, shirts, you name it. They've got it. That's Kelly-Vegas, or Kelly-Strong.com. That's Kelly-Strong.com. Real quick, got to mention a real big week for the Purdue Boilermakers. Yes! Purdue University had a phenomenal handful of days. And, it starts out, of course, with basketball. Then there's a great football game. And Purdue, let's just start with that. Purdue had a real nice win over Indiana against hated Indiana down in Bloomington. So that was a road win. And that won Purdue the Big Ten West Championship. Of course, they're going to square off against Michigan in the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis, so basically a home game for Purdue. Great stuff. A chance to go to the Rose Bowl with a win there. Also, we go to college basketball. And how about this? How about Zach Edey, all 7 foot plus of him, drops 23 on Gonzaga as the Boilers blow out the Zags 84-66, completely dismantling Gonzaga, the big bad Gonzaga Bulldogs. Yeah, a lot more bark than bite, I suppose. Now, the Associated Press has it as Zach Edey and his Purdue teammates were admittedly too excited early on for the chance to compare themselves to one of the top teams in the country. Mind you, this is the Associated Press. And of course, once the 24th ranked Boilermakers calmed down, they showed they are a top team after a thorough 84-66 thumping and good old-fashioned ass whipping of number 6 Gonzaga in the semifinals of the Phil Knight Legacy Tournament. And Zach Edey said, quote, "I think everyone was really psyched up for the game. That kind of came up in the first few minutes with those early game jitters. And I thought as the game went on, we did a really good job of sticking to our scouting report," close quote. So Edey scored 15 of his 23 in the final 15 minutes. That's clutch basketball right there. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer each added 14, and Purdue surged into a championship game against number 8 Duke. Yes, and we'll get to that in a minute. And of course, Edey Purdue's 7'4". This guy is a monster at 7'4", and just a SWAT machine, a shot blocking mecca. And of course, he was the catalyst for a big second half and took over at the stretch. And of course, but he had a pretty good supporting cast too. Caleb First added 10, and Purdue shot 57% in the second half, made 6 of its 11 three-point attempts, and of course, out-rebounded the Zags 46-31. That's significant. And Purdue had an answer for every run Gonzaga tried to make. In fact, Gonzaga forward Drew Timme had said of Zach Edey, quote, "He's a moose. He just camps out down there. He's strong. He knows how to use his body. He knows how to get his hook. And it's just like you have to put your hands up and hope he misses," close quote. So Purdue handed Gonzaga its second loss in a month of November. Listen, they don't lose very many games. So it was a big win. It's the second time in only 12 years, better yet, it's only the second time in 12 years that Gonzaga has lost 2 games in the month of November. In fact, the Bulldogs were 4-2, 71-8 in November games since 2010, entering their game against the Boilers, and the Boilers gave them that good old-fashioned ass whooping. What a beautiful thing. And of course, nice round of applause for Purdue. And so, Timmy, you may think, look, this guy's really thin, and he doesn't match up well. He's tall and thin. Doesn't match up with a big-bodied Zach Edey. So Timmy led Gonzaga with 22 points and 9 rebounds. Got a nice touch, a real soft touch with the ball, but just not very strong. So look, it was a really big matchup, highly anticipated. Edey was just too much, man. And of course, Nolan Hickman added 15, but the rest of the Zags role players didn't even show up on the offensive end. And Julian Strother, they had just 4 points. Malachi Smith, who had 23 in the opening round over abysmal Portland State, he scored only 3 against Purdue. And Gonzaga's coach Mark Few was frustrated with some of the shot decisions that he felt the offense struggled and led defensive breakdowns in the second half. Look, he's playing a big team. This is what happens when you have big bodies in the way. So never mind the quote. He's just like, look, he says, quote, I thought we took a couple, well, maybe more than a couple, 5, 6, 7 pull-up jumpers that we didn't need to, and that led to some frustration and carried over into the defensive end. We got torched on defense in the second half, close quote. So, of course, both teams exchanged 8-point leads in the first half, and it was Purdue leading by 5 at the break. And, of course, the Zags pulled to within 1 in the opening moments of the second half, but, of course, that fizzled very quickly. Purdue eventually pushed that lead to 12, and needless to say, Purdue's lead then climbed to 20. And Purdue coach Matt Painter had said, our guys are competitive, and they're fun to coach. They get along. They're out there playing with purpose, and that's what you have to have. Early in the season, very few teams play the purpose collectively, and I thought our guys played with purpose today, close quote. And let's face it, Purdue wasn't done because their next game was against Duke. So a big dilemma for me. I'm an undergrad from Purdue, earned my undergraduate degree there, my bachelor's from there, but I got an MBA from Duke. So now I've got my 2 schools playing, which I really support both of them. Talk about a conundrum. So I was actually rooting for Purdue because they haven't won as much as Duke has. So here, it was Purdue, of course, playing big bad Duke. Well, guess what? Here comes Zach Edey again, and Edey this time scored 21 as Purdue destroyed number 8 Duke 75-56. So they won by 18 against the Zags, and they win by 19 against Duke. These guys are no joke. And of course, CBS Sports and the AP said Zach Edey and the number 24 Purdue Boilermakers shook off a slow start when number 8 Duke tried to rally in the second half, and the Boilers put their foot on the gas and finished strong. Edey had 21 and 12 rebounds, and Purdue smashed Duke 75-56 in the championship game of the Phil Knight Legacy Men's Tournament. And of course, Fletcher Lawyer, 18. He had 18 for Purdue, who's 6-0 now, and reserve Caleb First finished with 11 points and 10 rebounds, 10 boards, not bad. Zach Edey said, quote, I feel like we weren't getting the looks we wanted early. As we settled into the game, we kept our poise and kept getting shots that we wanted, and they were making some tough twos at the beginning of the game, and shots were okay all season, close quote. And again, you got to think about this is a team with a ton of tradition, and Duke had the number 1 recruiting class coming into the season. Even John Shire, who took over for Coach K, he had said of Zach Edey, quote, they have the most unique player in the country. He's a hard guy to prepare for because there's nobody else like him, close quote. You got that right. Big body, 7'4", the guy moves, and he's actually faster this year than last year. Now, Duke is 6-2. They shot 36.2%, 21 for 58 from the field, and of course, Tyrus Proctor scored 16 for the Blue Devils. Filipowski and Roach each scored 14. Just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And ultimately, this Purdue team, they looked like the number 1 team in the nation. They looked like truly the number 1 team in America. So they're going to leap from number 24. They're going to be a top 10 team. You knock off Gonzaga and Duke, 2 teams perennially in the Final Four. I mean, for the last decade, whatever. And guess what? Both teams are still very, very good. You knock off both of those teams in the way that they did it, 2 blowout wins, and let's face it, they're road games, but 2 decisive wins. Look what Michigan State had to go through just to beat Gonzaga. It was a last-second shot when they played that game on the aircraft carrier. Okay, and they beat them by 1. Michigan State and Purdue, of course, playing the Big Ten. The Big Ten is power. They are good. They own college basketball like the SEC seems to own college football. Watch out, rest of the country. A lot of people say, well, the SEC is good in basketball and Auburn's pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. Alabama's pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. And Tennessee's pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. But they're not Big Ten good. There's the difference. Big Ten will rule the college basketball world this year, and we've already seen this. And look, the Big Ten teams, 2 of them anyway, have already beaten one of the top teams in college basketball. And we're going to see a lot more of that. Now, you have the Big Ten ACC challenge every year, right, which will pin the big teams against, well, frankly, actually, the ACC teams will play the Big Ten teams. They match them up. And I'm kind of curious to see, I believe that, well, I don't really know what the schedule is, but I'm going to guess that maybe Purdue might get a chance to square off against North Carolina. Or even Notre Dame. And because they play in the ACC, that is Notre Dame. So we'll see what happens there. And let's face it, Notre Dame is a good squad. And can they beat the teams in the Big Ten? I don't know. Those guys are good. ACC is the power in basketball, in college basketball, as the years and years have gone by. But guess what? Slowly, the Big Ten is eating into it. And see, the records have fallen. Generally, they have lesser records going into the postseason because they beat each other up throughout the season, if you know what I mean. That's exactly what happens. And so ultimately, we're looking at teams in the Big Ten that are better than most of the other conferences. I gotta give it up to Purdue. I mean, these guys in football, these guys in basketball, they are having one of the best weeks in recent history for Purdue University. Yes! Of course, everybody on TV can see me holding up at Purdue baseball. Yes, that's the elongated P. Everybody on Instagram, there it is. That's the elongated P for Purdue. All right, so all I can say is Purdue Pete and the Boilers, you will be a top 10 team. We'll see. I'm going to guess maybe they're going to jump to maybe number 6 in the nation. We'll see what that looks like. Anyway, folks, we're out of time here on the Sports Circus. We'll see you next time right here on your favorite station. So until then, so long, everyone.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.